In this video, I want to talk about every SML character that actually deserved to die. Now, obviously, SML has a lot of dead jokes, fake deaths, non-canon deaths, and characters who die just because the episode needs a random gag. But this list is different. These are characters who are canonically evil, dangerous, abusive, murderers, or just so destructive that when they finally died, it did not feel sad. It felt earned. Starting with the most obvious one, Does Bad Things Guy. Does Bad Things Guy is probably one of the darkest villains SML has ever had. He was not just a random bad guy. He was a serial killer who secretly replaced Brooklyn Guy, tricked people into buying the house, and killed anyone who discovered what was behind the secret door. The entire reveal in the secret door is so disturbing because you realize this was not a one-time thing. He had been doing this for years, hiding bodies, taking pictures, and pretending to be normal. So when the real Brooklyn Guy finally shows up and shoots him, it is one of the most satisfying villain deaths in SML. He did not die because of a joke, he died because he was finally exposed, and someone stopped him before he could hurt anyone else. Then we have Nancy. Nancy is one of the most hated characters in SML for a reason. She abandoned Jeffy, used him, manipulated him, and only cared about him when money was involved. She was also connected to some of the darkest parts of Jeffy and Phoebe's backstory, which made her more than just an annoying villain. She was a genuinely cruel mother who caused lasting damage to her own kids. Her death in Jeffy's 19th birthday felt satisfying because it finally ended years of Jeffy being used as a target by his own biological family. Nancy was not someone who wanted redemption. She wanted control, money, and revenge. So when she was finally taken out, it felt like Jeffy was finally free from one of the biggest sources of pain in his life. Next is CJ Winkle. CJ Winkle is another character whose death felt completely deserved. He was a drug dealer. He was connected to Nancy, and most importantly, he was part of the horrible abuse Phoebe went through as a child. I don't think I need to go into every detail for you to understand how awful he was. CJ was one of the evil people who made Jeffy's childhood so dark. That is why his death in Jeffy's 20th birthday feels like justice. Jeffy tying him to a monster truck and destroying the trailer is exaggerated, ridiculous, and very SML, but emotionally, the audience understands why it happens. CJ was not just some random villain, he represented a piece of Jeffy's trauma finally being crushed. Then, there is Mr. Winkle. Mr. Winkle is one of those SML characters who is uncomfortable on purpose. He is not just a weird teacher, he is repeatedly portrayed as a dangerous predator around children, and later he is connected to even darker villain roles, especially through the Five Nights at Freddy's style storylines. Even when SML uses him for comedy, the joke is always that he is a deeply disturbing person who should never be around kids. So when Mr. Winkle is finally dead, it does not feel like a loss, it feels like the story removing someone who was always written to be disgusting, creepy, and dangerous. Out of every villain on this list, he's one of the easiest to say he deserved it. Next is Jacques Pierre François. For a long time, Jax was more mysterious than directly hated because he was originally believed to be dead, but once SML brought him back and revealed more of who he really was, he became another terrible piece of Jeffy's family history. He faked his death, avoided responsibility, and eventually became a direct threat to Jeffy himself. In Jeffy's 21st birthday, Jax tried to get rid of Jeffy for selfish reasons, and his plan ends with him dying in a plane crash. That death feels earned because Jax had already abandoned his role as a father, then came back only to make Jeffy's life worse. Instead of protecting his son, he tried to erase him from his life completely. Then we have Frogger. At first, Frogger seems like a weird little frog character, but then the episode reveals he's actually an evil creature from Area 51. He kills Chef PeePee, tries to kill Marvin and Rose, and makes it clear that he wants humans wiped out. That immediately makes him from a silly animal gag to an actual threat. So when Jackie Chu eats him alive, it is gross, but it is also satisfying. Frogger was not misunderstood, he was not harmless, he was a violent creature who started a rampage, and his death stopped him before he could do even more damage. Next is Jeffo. Jeffo is basically an evil robot version of Jeffy, and the reason his death works is because he's not treated like a normal kid or a misunderstood clone. He's a dangerous machine. Once Jeffo becomes a threat, the episode turns into a robot disaster story, and his destruction feels like the only way to end the chaos. Then we have the Killer Shrimp. This one sounds ridiculous, but in SML logic, the Killer Shrimp is genuinely dangerous. It attacks people, kills multiple characters, and becomes a full-on monster threat. The name is funny, but the character is still written as a killer. So when Woody finally shoots the Killer Shrimp, it feels like a classic monster movie ending. The villain is absurd, but the audience still wants it gone because it has caused enough damage. Next is Robot Chef PeePee. Robot Chef PeePee is interesting because he starts as a replacement for the real Chef PeePee, but once his robotic nature is revealed, he becomes violent and dangerous. He chases Junior and Cody and turns from a fake Chef PeePee into a full antagonist. His death by being pushed into the bathtub is simple, but it still works. He was not the real Chef PeePee. He was a malfunctioning, violent replacement who could not be trusted. So when he short circuits, it feels like the correct ending for a robot villain. Then there is Drawing Jeffy. Drawing Jeffy is not evil in the same deep way as Nancy or Does Bad Things Guy, but he is still dangerous. So when Junior traps him back in the paper and gets rid of him, the audience does not feel bad for him. Drawing Jeffy was a mistake that came to life, and his death feels like reality correcting itself. Next is Puppet Ken. Puppet Ken is one of the creepiest Ken-related characters in SML. Cody creates him to prove that Ken is alive, but once Puppet Ken starts acting independently, he becomes violent, jealous, and threatening. He breaks into the story as more than just a puppet. He becomes a possessed, off-the-style villain who hurts people and turns on Cody's friends. That is why Cody burning him feels satisfying. Puppet Ken was not just proof that Cody was right, he was proof that bringing Ken to life could be a nightmare. His death ends the danger and resets the story back to normal. And finally, the Cat in the Hat. The Cat in the Hat is not evil on the same level as the others, but he is still a destructive antagonist. His death is satisfying in a more comedic way. Junior does not beat him in a serious fight. He beats him by using the cat's obsession with rhyming against him. The cat's head exploding because he cannot rhyme a word is ridiculous, but it fits the episode perfectly. He annoyed everyone, destroyed the house, and finally lost because of his own gimmick. And that is every SML character who deserved to die. Follow me, you want to watch more SML related videos like this one, or just more funny videos like this one. I also upload videos about other things, in case you want to check my channel out. Bye!